All right, and we're live for the 16th live stream of the Music Hack Space. And today we receive from London, Georgina Brett. Hello, Georgina.
Hi.
And today we're going to talk about live looping. And as such, maybe let's start with a presentation of you, Georgina, who you are.
Well, I started off as a music student at university, and I was always interested in electronics. I did electronics A level and maths and music, so always interested in technological side of things. And I went into Pro Tools and early on digital work, and then I just took a bit of a turn and decided that I wanted to work with an analog setup where I could really investigate timing and rhythm and sort of. It was actually something I did when I was I had a young kid, because it was something I could do that was really entertaining when he'd gone to bed at night, and it's a wonderful thing just to play with rhythm and sound and your voice. It's like a vocal. Your voice doesn't have to. You don't have to say words with your instrument. It's an instrument, so I use it as an instrument quite a lot. So, yeah. So.
Right. And there's one part of your bio that I find quite intimidating, which is that you've been a radio host for over 10 years with Resonance.fm, and actually it shows now that you were ready before the COVID hit to broadcast from home.
Well, I did. A while ago, I think it was 2012 or 2011. I did a string of. I called them Ustream Mondays, and Ustream was the streaming software that I was using at the time. I don't think there were that many at the time, but yeah, I used to do quite a lot of pieces that I still do now, but also challenged by my sort of friends and sort of in the sort of live looping community, and just anybody really who was listening. I would get them to challenge me, so the next week I'd have something new to try out. So that was really fun. It was a really nice way to work. But I did actually stop for quite a long time. I didn't do any live broadcasts from home. But yeah, just since COVID, I thought, well, I might as well start up again.
So how do you get started with live looping? Because as a composition technique, it's quite particular. What inspired you to go on that path?
Well, my friend Steve, who's a guitarist, as part of this 24-hour recording session, it was a sort of once a year thing. They're trying to get loads of musicians in to do a recording in this studio down in South London, and someone had a setup with some delays, and I just started singing, and I just realised it was something that I absolutely loved to do. So, within a week, I bought myself a delay pedal and I started with one, and then I had two, and then someone gave me one, and then I got another one, and it's sort of grown over time. But it started in 2003. That was the first time I started using a pedal. So, with my voice, because I'm not really a vocalist. I'm an oboist originally, oboe and piano and clarinet, but and composition. Of course, I did electronic composition at Birmingham University. So sort of tried lots of things.
Yeah, and maybe just to describe live looping, I'm going to have an attempt at describing, and then you can correct me if I'm wrong. So live looping is the idea of recording layers of sound that add to one another to create time after time the composition itself. And
Go on.
please.
Well, I think I'm quite unusual because I actually don't use loopers. And most people who do live looping do use looping delays, and I just use delays. And this one particularly, the reason why I have 4 of the same is because it's because you get the same result. You get exactly the same result. So if I play here, if I set, there's no anomalies. That's what I like about them, because they all have the same anomaly because they're the same circuitry. So if I've got, I mean, there's my circuit board up there. I don't know if that's useful for anybody to see, but this is number 1, that's number 2, that's number 3, that's number 4, and this is number 1, that's number 2, that's number 3, number 4, and they. And if I set that one to 3 seconds and that one to 3 seconds, I know that I'll get something that's almost exactly the same. Definitely timing-wise, but sound-wise as well. So, and it's about creating layers and playing around with different divisions of time. So, say for instance, you know, you've got a timing where there's 5 beats at one tempo, and it's 8 beats at another tempo, and if you use a light as a metronome, you can kind of fiddle around with that. And so yeah, there's endless fascinations really. I just found it really interesting to work with.
Right, and you've prepared a diagram next that we can see on next to you. Can you talk about this a little bit?
Yeah, it's should I point at the diagram? So this one is the DD. This one says DD21. That's DD22. So what I've got my mic coming into channel 3, and I send it out using there's an alt. The mute switch is also alt out. It sends them to alt out, and then I've got the 2 alt outs. One is split and goes to the input of 1 and 2, and the other one is split and goes to the input of 3 and 4. And then I use just a reverb on all the channels just to warm it up a bit. And I've got this wonderful eventide pitch factor, which I probably won't go into today because I've been finding it difficult to get into that. That's the next project, actually. That's kind of pretend that's not. But anyway, so yes, what can I say? Yeah.
Well,
so do you want me to start with?
Yeah, no, it'd be great to hear you a little bit, and then you can unfold the composition process and how it intertwines with the technical aspect of your setup as well.
Okay. Well, I'm going to start with a really simple one. It's just one delay pedal. Oh. Da dee 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 So yeah, that's just using one pedal, just fiddling around, and yeah, I could go on for ages with that one, but yeah, that's the bulk of that piece. It's really short.
Okay. So how does it work? So the delay line takes your sound live and then programs to repeat it, but then you overlay the delay on itself, right? So it records again.
Yeah, I just set the feedback to maximum, and I just everything that I sing just gets recorded. So there's no. I don't need to fiddle with too much, which I quite like, because it means you can really concentrate on how you are interacting with the time, as opposed to how you interact with a piece of equipment that interfaces with the time, or with interfaces with the thing that's recording it. So that's one of the other reasons I like delays, because they really are that simple. It's just, so this is the on button. So if I press that, then it's on. So, but it's on very low feedback. But if I turn it up, then it's on. It's recording me, and it'll just keep recording, and it will keep layering until you just turn it right back down again. Then it's on. Until just keep recording, or I just flick it off. These are the presets. It's got 4 presets. Each one's got 4 presets. These are the presets. It's got 4 presets. Each one's got 4 presets. These are the presets. It's got 4. So yeah, it's a very simple piece of kit. I tend to just use it on pan, because I like pan. I like the way that what you sing comes out the middle, and the delays come out either side, and it's a bit jumbled up, but I actually quite like that as a kind of it means there's more variation going on in that's a bit, because nothing I do is really exact. I have a framework, and then I just go with the framework, and the piece comes out kind of like the last time I did it, but I never decide I'm only going to sing that line once, or I'm only going to sing that. I usually just let. It's usually about the resulting sound. If it's sounding really cluttered, I might put the feedback down to get rid of some of the old layers. Keep the old layers, take the old layers out, and then I'll put it back up again, leave some of them in, or I might put it right down, get rid of them all. It depends on the actual song, really. Sometimes there's specific songs need for me to quickly get rid of all the layers so I can go on to the next bit, and other times not. It really depends on the piece that I've written.
Right. And speaking of writing a piece, how do you write for delay pedals? I mean, this is not traditional score notation.
But it's more about writing for a unit of time. So, for instance, let me show you. So this one's called, this one's on SoundCloud. It's called Positive Love Song. So with that one, the music's. So the music is, there are three main parts. There's the top line, the next line, and then there's, I don't know, part 1, what did I call it? Part 1, part 2, and part 3. And melody A and harmony A. melody B, harmony B, which is that's. Oh, it's difficult to explain now because I can't see that on the screen very well. So actually, it should be quite explanatory from the notes I put on the side. So with this one, I always pick whichever note I want to start on, and then I sing melody A, or melody 1 and melody A and melody B, and then I leave a gap, and then I press the delay. So the delay loops back, so that when it comes back, I then hear the first bit and the second bit, and then nothing. And then I hear and then I add the harmony, and then nothing, and then I add the second one, which it's like a counterpoint. It's like Bach, it has a counterpoint. It's like trying to get slightly less, it's like a round in a way. So, but it's slightly elaborate round because it's got several different parts to it. So, I don't write for the pedal. The pedal's very. What it does is really simple. Because it just is a unit of time, which is usually this piece usually goes at about 19 seconds.
Right, I see. I find fascinating the fact that, when you compose, I suppose the writer's block happens. Sometimes you don't know what's next. But with live looping, because you have all this constant feedback, that what you've created in the past sort of keeps you in a creative flow, as it were. And that's, I mean, do you find this useful and inspiring for your own practice, or?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, this particular piece, I actually composed it with notes, and I actually got out and I thought about the chords, and that's a composed piece. Whereas a lot of the things I do are improvisations, and then I've learnt the improvisation, and then if I want to turn it into a piece that I re-perform, then I note down the improvisation. I have a book where I note down. So this one here was an improvisation. No, there were words to that one to start with. There's other ones. The Negative Love Song, which is also on SoundCloud, that was one that was an improvisation to start with. And then, it's something that you can just get really lost in if you want to, in terms of the timings and using the way that they interact with each other. I can show you how the delays, the way I would work with improvising with the delays if you want. Shall I show you the?
That'd be great, yeah.
Timing?
And you've showed us the piece before with one delay line, and it'd be great to see how much more complex it can become with when you use the entire system.
In terms of this piece.
Or any piece that you want to.
Any piece, okay. Well, probably.
Either you improvise, it's up to you, or if you want to play one of your existing pieces.
I don't have to play this one. I could. What would probably be best to do would be to put up this, and then just play around and just show how I work with the delays in an improvisation format.
Great.
That's just this corresponds. I don't know if you can actually see the numbers on these. Probably not from here, but this one, that's the number one setting is 0.75. That's 750. So these do actually correspond to that, although it's these three. So okay. So what I failed to do there for a second was set. So this is the 80. This is at 80 BPM. This is one note, one crotchet at 80. This is 2 at 80, and this is 3 at 80. And then this is 5 at 80. So to make that really clear, I'll just do a really high note and then you'll hear it every 5. And the sort of fun you can have with it when they go along like this, because you can fade out. Like if I fade out 80 crotchet, which is this one. Turn that down a minute. This one. Turn that one down. I end up with this. So now I could play with this one here. For instance, I've got that one there. So that's a minim at 80 BPM, and the other timing that I work with this particular sort of matrix, I'm going a bit slowly at the moment, but the other timing is so it starts with the delay 2, and if I have the delay 2 on there, it's 96. These timings are quite well related together. And then if I move this one, fade that one out. So basically fade this one out, let that one. Then I can bring this one in at 128. You have to be really careful not to leave them on for too long because they just keep adding more and more hiss. So when you play the really short loops, it's really important. So I'm just aware, are there any questions? Because, or should I just carry on?
Well, I'd love to bring about one of the things that you've showed me earlier, which was this Bach piece where you revisit elements of this piece to play it with live looping and revisit the harmony effectively by recording yourself.
Absolutely. So let's go on to that. I mean, this I did it very slowly, and it was but it is a real fascination. With the Bach is again just the one. Actually, you do use 3 delays with it generally. I'll try and do that today. But okay, so if I get rid of that for a minute.
I suppose in some ways Bach lends itself really well to being revisited in live looping because he's known for composing in fugue and reusing a lot of the elements of a motif and transpose it and apply it in canon, as it were. So I suppose you used a lot of that in this approach.
This is I do that with other pieces. I've got a piece called Etu Star, which utilizes some of the kind of more fugue elements of a type of kind of Bach kind of contrapuntal style. This is actually the prelude, this is one of the really famous preludes, and so really, all I'm doing here is can you see where I picked out the notes that are red, so those are the ones I sing first, and I go round the loop. So actually all I'm doing is singing 5 bars of this prelude, but I have to start somewhere, so instead of starting with the bass, the very first note, I start with the notes that are red, and then I add the top note, and then I add that note. But then I add the first note. And then try and do that today. These ones in green are on the offbeat.
Sorry to interrupt. We can't hear you very well. But if you're past your microphone.
So the ones that are in green are on the. So the ones that are in red are on the beat, and the ones that are in green are off the beat. So those are in the quavers in between the on beats, so I try to do. That's the next one. What I try to do is to sing them in this order, and I sing all the on-beat ones in one delay and all the off-beat ones in another delay. I don't know why I'm actually getting a delay, but anyway. And then I can actually get rid of the on beats and leave the off beats on, which is an interesting. I'll try and do that today. And then the other and the third delay, often I add the Ave Maria part, which is something that it's a Gounod did a piece that's based on Bach, but it's sort of try and do that today. The sung part over the top, which I think maybe people recognise. I mean, I could do that one if you. Shall we do this one?
Sure. Yeah. No, I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah. So I'll leave that one up, and you've got the idea of. I don't think I can concentrate on singing and moving that thing on. Okay. Da dee 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 dee da 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 actually really difficult. It's a bit too low, actually. Usually I manage to pick a note that's higher up. that's kind of the architecture of that one.
Thank you. That was great. And perhaps to just to explain to people would join us halfway in the process. So the score that you have on your screen is the prelude by Bach, and so you start by playing some of the notes, but not all of them in each. And then as the layers happen in the recording, you play another note, which at the end plays the entire motif. And from that point on, then you moved on to Gounod's Ave Maria, but by also removing some of the layers that created a different and replacing them.
Yeah, I mean, there's places to go with that as well. I mean, I think it's something that I've wanted to do, and I think as my work sort of develops, it's really fascinating to then. I think what I plan to do, which I have planned for ages to do, is to take out the main, the on beats, leave the off beats, and then actually create a different, go somewhere else with the off beats as the on beats, and then just create other notes and sort of like just go off on a meander. And that's what I've been heading towards for quite a long time. But in terms of, I just find it such a head fry in a lot of ways, and actually it's taken, it's like gaining the skills of it's almost like a tongue twister in the head to try and work that out. But yeah, that's the sort of the next thing, is to go on with that.
Yeah, and it does echo some of the Steve Reich composition, where you have this repeated pattern, like I'm thinking of Violin Phase or other pieces by Steve Reich, where the overlap of two samples just make it create this new emergence of notes, which you have worked with some of the scores.
Yeah, I just really I did do a little bit of work on the chords in electronic counterpoint, and I do have the score. I just found it actually the other day. I think, I might have to have a go at that one, but no, the one that I've been working with is just the very plain rhythms of clapping music. So yeah, shall we do that one? I'll show you my schematic of that.
Sure, that'd be great. And by the way, the sound has changed from earlier. I think that I can hear less. The volume is kind of lower now.
Okay. Is that any better?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that should be right now. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's perfect. And I've put you on solo layout so people can see the.
Okay, so this is my schematic of the Steve Reich piece that I did actually fish out. This is the actual score. So for musicians, that you can come back to that one later if you want to. But I actually prefer looking at this schematic, which is the cross is the beginning. The only thing he specifies is to emphasize the beginning. So the first note's got to be, if it's there, for instance, some like version 9 there doesn't actually have a note. So it's basically a sequence of 12 notes, and where there's not a note is the rest. So if that's self-explanatory, there's a bit of notes as to how I usually do it, but okay, so I shall just go ahead and do it. I'll just go ahead and do it. Da da dum dee dee dum da dum 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 da da So the bit that I I don't like that middle section so much right now. It's a bit boring. But the difficult thing is to try and do ascending and descending melodies, and I find that really hard. So I'll have a go at that because I don't want to hit the wrong note. I'll try it. There's just an element of improvisation in there because I don't really know what I'm doing. Well, I don't know perfectly, but I'm just enjoying the challenge of trying to get it right. Hi, I'm back.
Thank you.
I hope that was good. Yeah, it's really fun. I mean, I can go on forever with that. And I think the thing about this is it's more of sort of explaining kind of how it works. But I really enjoy that that melody. There's something incredible. It's not melody. It's a rhythm, but it's just such a simple rhythm, and it's just endlessly fascinating because of the way it falls and plays with itself. You know, you don't need to do much apart from present it perfectly, and then it just makes this beautiful collage that just sort of appears. It's lovely.
Yeah. Yeah, the evolution of it and how some of the notes would just emerge in the melody and changing it is fantastic. And we had a few nice comments and that I'm going to bring up. I don't know how much you can see of that, but yeah, people are enjoying it. So no questions,
Fantastic.
but really more. So by Phil and Marek, so thank you for contributing to that. So yeah, no, that's great. And so what else? I have a question about your setup. So you have you started with the hardware, and you've also tried with software. I imagine. What makes you stick to hardware at this point?
It's difficult to say. I really vibe with the way that the delays as the giga delay adds more layers, it just sort of crushes it nicely. It just sort of like there's something that doesn't there's not many loopers that I found that do that sort of. It's a bit of an organic thing that happens to the palette of the sound that if you add lots and lots of layers together. I mean, I'm definitely finding really good results with Augustus Loop, which is an Expert Sleepers plugin. And actually, it's really my kind of aversion to Ableton and actually sitting in front of the computer, which although I did an MA in electronic composition, I very much didn't want to sit in front of the computer. So this is what this is like the revolt against the computer, but I have actually started on my journey with Ableton, because I am working with the controller. So, and I have done a couple of courses in Max as well. So, yeah, I'm actually feeling like, you know, there's plenty of new places to go with what I do, which is, you know, like technologically, and I'm already getting there. You know, I've got all 3 controllers going and different, yeah, but I just need to feel my way through what I know, because I know I've got knowledge of Max over here and knowledge of this and that, and it's just actually putting them all together and finding a way to work with them. It's a long road, I think, learning process.
For sure. And I mean, I really enjoy listening to your compositions. I would love if you have another one that you,
Let's do, because we've done, actually, let's do day and night, I think. Excuse me. So this is day and night. So I'll just flash these up here just for a moment. This is the adjectives from one particular newscast and I divided them into positive and negative and neutral, and I wanted to sort of analyze, you know, how many negative describing words were there in the news and how many positive describing words were there. I mean, basically, let's forget what the context is. Let's have a look at the fact you're being bombarded with negativity. And so I came up with, I chose 13 negative words and 4 positive ones, and then the rest were kind of more neutral. And they're actually, that was actually the list of me going through the musecast. And then, so it sort of developed this idea, and I thought, well, what am I going to do with it? So that's another thing that I was busy trying to work out how the notes fell and stuff. And then I was working with a jazz guitarist, and doing some standards at the time, and he suggested I just play around with a middle 8 to Cole Porter's Night and Day. So, because he said it was just so beautifully chromatic, so I thought, yeah, that sounds great. So there's me messing about with the chords, and then so this is the thing that really that I now use to. I do use it every time I sing it, because you see the green notes. Where it's green is where the note that is the chord, basically. So that's my version of it. That's in my book. So I decided to play with the idea of night and day, good and bad, positive, negative, and so I chose a descending melody within the chords of the middle 8 to start with, and exposing the 13 negative, and then fill the chords in, and then I'd expose the 4 positive adjectives, and then I eventually expose that it's night and day, but you don't know it's night and day until it all gets filled in. So shall I do it?
yes, please.
Again, this is a very simple delay, very long, and I usually tap it because I never know what speed I prefer to sing it at until the time of actually singing it. I find it really annoying being limited to a specific timing, because depends on the day. Bogus, unknown, radical, horrific, so vulnerable, angry, disappointed, uncertain, anxious, tense, violent, sporadic. Bogus, unknown, radical, horrific, so vulnerable, angry, disappointed, uncertain, anxious, tense, violent, sporadic. Bogus, unknown, I'm going to start that again. It's just going to do me hidden. Sorry. It's amazingly important, the timing. Bogus, unknown, radical, horrific, so vulnerable, angry, disappointed, uncertain, anxious, tense, violent, sporadic. Bogus, unknown, radical, horrific, so vulnerable, angry, disappointed, uncertain, anxious, tense, violent, sporadic. Bogus, unknown, radical, horrific, so vulnerable, angry, disappointed, uncertain, anxious, tense, violent, sporadic. Bogus, unknown, radical, horrific, so vulnerable, angry, disappointed, uncertain, anxious, tense, violent, sporadic. I can actually just go on with that one. I can really play around with that for a very long time. But yeah, I realised we're on 7:36. So.
Well, thank you. That was beautiful. I love the transition. I can't pin down just now how you moved from the beginning and the words to the song at the end. But there's a very subtle moment where some of the layers disappear and then make room for a new harmony to emerge. So like the construction of it, I think has in many ways could make your head explode. I mean, it would make mine explode for sure.
Thank you. Well, just turn the reverb off. It's been many years of practice, that one. It's getting it right between the semitones and the tones, and sliding from making sure that you keep the definition. Otherwise, when I first did it, it was really woolly and muddy. But as time has gone on and I've done it over the years, it's a pleasure to do, because it's a challenge, and it's like a fun puzzle to work on. So yeah, no, I love it. There's much more to do. This is what's lovely about pedals, and there's many other places you can go with it, and especially moving on to properly working with Ableton. It'd be interesting to see what happens next.
Yeah, and I think for those members of the Music Hackspace, people we've been following for some time, and we have many engineers and people who look for inspiration, also to design solutions that help artists realize a vision. And in your case, I think there's not an off-the-shelf device that realize your vision. You have to adapt it, to bend it to what you want to do. And I think it's a very insightful perspective into a composition process that could inspire also some new tools.
Well, thank you. I think I've definitely always been in. Turn this reverb off.
Oh, I think you've turned off more than the reverb.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? It's okay.
Yep, I think the reverb is still there, but I'm gonna hear you fine. No, I can't hear you anymore.
Oh, I know why. Yeah. Okay, so got it.
Perfect.
So what was I going to say? Sorry, you'll have to remind me.
Talking about the composition process, and I was talking about the inspiration and that people can get by
yeah, I've got it now. Yeah, I've always been in a bit of a revolt against the programs which they don't lend themselves to improvisation with unusual timings and stuff. I'd love to have played you and one piece I did in 7 is 7/8, and the fun thing about excuse me, using delays as opposed to loopers is that you can change the emphasis of the bar as well. So you've just got a unit of time which could start anywhere within that unit. So if you've started it on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, but you then could which is what I do with the song, is that I then emphasize the 4 and the 1 fades away, and then the 4 becomes the 1, and there's nothing that you don't get locked into this kind of frame that's kind of like so that. And then also then I emphasize the offbeat. Or I mean, with the 7, you don't really have ons and off beats, but finding the holes between the melodies, and then you putting notes in between and stuff. I've always delighted in rhythm that is rhythmic but free within its rhythmicness. that's one of the things I found difficult with the electroacoustic composition, was because it was it's almost like a revolt against rhythm and harmony, and so I was doing a course in that.
Because I'm going to cover in the meantime and bring up just a few comments from Nella, and she also has a question that I'll follow up as soon as you finish the thought. But
Yeah, no,
we're
go on, that's
grateful
fine.
for people to listen and share what they enjoyed. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, so I think there's so much more that can be. I mean, I've always really been interested in minimalism, but improvising with minimalist techniques, and I feel a bit like a lot of the minimalist stuff is there is an area to expand into that hasn't necessarily been explored, but maybe it's because I don't listen to enough modern music. And that actually does do this, but I'm always interested in the way rhythms interact with each other, and then you can meander off and do something over here and then come back, and it's that freedom within the structure.
Right. Yeah, and I can see how interesting it is for improvisation as well. There is a question that we partially covered, but I'm going to bring it up from Nella, because you didn't cover the in her question what microphone you're using. I think the delay pedals and the sync. That's probably covered in the early part of the
What's my
tool.
microphone? What type of
Yes.
microphone am I using?
Yes.
This one is a. What is it? It's a Sennheiser. I can't even read that. E935. It's a hypercardioid.
Right.
So it's got quite severe noise reduction. I do have studio mics as well, but I tend not to use those. There's quite a lot of extraneous noise, and this one's quite. I found it quite useful. It's not necessarily the best mic that you could get, but it's done me quite well, I think. Yeah, as a non-phantom powered mic, so it's not phantom powered.
Right. And well, to answer the rest of the question, I don't know if you can see it popped
Also,
up.
are delay pedals in sync? No, they don't. They're not in sync. They don't need that. Well, I think there is a function that you can sync them, but no, I just alter the delay times myself. And the lovely thing about the DD20 is that the delay, they go up to 23 seconds. So you can do all sorts of fun things with that, I mean, you can set you can set, say, this one to 2 seconds and that one to 2 seconds, and then you start changing the knob a little tiny bit, and then they just go out of phase, and then you can put them back in phase again. And there's so much scope in interest in rhythm. Does that make sense? What is a signal flow? Okay, shall we just put that up quickly?
Oh, sure.
So yeah, that's the signal flow. I'm not sure. I've got the reverb is on a auxiliary. So I've got two auxiliaries, and this Eventide, which I haven't gone into, is on another auxiliary. And then the delays come up here. They are a bit noisy. I have them set to +4, so that they're a bit more. Sorry. So, and what I do is I have the mic set into the third channel at the moment, so it's got slightly less used mic preamp, and I send. So if I don't think, yeah, I mean, that's just coming out through the mic, and then I send it to the delays by pressing the mute button, which is also sending it to Alt 3 and 4. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. I think the diagram helps,
Good.
showing the ins and outs. And well, that was great. Thank you so much for taking the time
Oh, thank you.
and performing on the live stream. So you have you do occasionally live streams on Facebook.
Yeah, I'm on my Facebook page. I set them to the world so anyone can see them. So yeah, that's the platform I'm using at the moment. Although I might try and send them to YouTube as well. But yeah, on a Wednesday, I've decided to do it on a Wednesday at 9 p.m., 9 till 10, so just once a week. Yeah,
Great.
so
Okay, so people, yeah. I'll put that in the comments for people to find you again. And I think I watched a couple of your live streams, and it's wonderful how it's being this atmospheric environment. This Nina saying that sounds like a vocal meditation, and I think all these words about meditation, about atmosphere, sort of poetry as well come to mind when we listen to your music. So
oh, thank you. Well, there's something about using something very simple, of a simple bit of technology, which allows you to sort of relax with it, because you're not having to access the cognitive part of your brain that kind of that thinks about. And so it's what I'm trying to do with the controllers. I'm using MIDI Designer Pro at the moment. I'm just trying to set up buttons that will try to keep me in that the performative mode, as opposed to tech mode, which I think takes, if you're in that mind frame, it sort of takes away from the performance, I always feel. So I don't know, especially with the singing anyway. So there aren't that many people that do looping like this. So, but that's what I've found over the years anyway.
great.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for coming.
It's really nice to do. I had a very good last few days, just like collating my funny schematic diagrams and bits and bobs, and it'll be really useful for other times as well. So it's fantastic. Yeah.
Great. Well, so thank you, Georgina, and thank you everyone for following today. We have 2 other events related to live looping this week. On Thursday, we received Team Exile, was built this app that was inspired in part by live looping. It's going to talk about the release of this app, and then we have a workshop on live looping with Ableton Live on Saturday. So if you're interested in learning more of the techniques in software, you are welcome to join that workshop on Saturday. And that's it for today. Thank you again, Georgina. Thank you everyone for following.
Thank you.
Bye.
It was really fun. Thank you.